Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Future Proof, the podcast where we're decoding how founders, leaders, CEOs, and execs are working smarter by implementing AI systems, automation, and data. If you're looking to future-proof your business, you're definitely in the right place. And real quick, before we jump in with Kevin today, and I introduce my guest, for everybody that knows us, we build AI solutions. So if you just really want to have a no-pitch 30-minute collab with us to find out if there's something we can help you with, there's links in the show notes, and we're happy to just jump on a call and talk through it. Anyway, let's jump into today's episode with Kevin Nico from I want to make sure Zenex, right?
Zenex
and Cloud Access,
Zenex.
Right?
Correct.
Zenex. Yeah.
Access is the legal name. Zenex is the doing
the
business.
brand name.
You focus on SOC as a service. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so, Kevin, let's jump right in, right? I want to hear about kind of your background leading up to this role, and then we'll jump into Zenex.
Well, sure. So I have a bachelor's and master's in computer engineering and an MBA. So I've been in IT for the past 40 years. This is my passion. I love technology. I always read about technology. I follow the industry. I've been following the industry for years and years and years. Very early on, I actually did assembly code. I wrote on, believe it or not, on floppy disks. That tells you how old I am.
Hey, I remember floppy disks, so I'm right with you.
So I've been around for a long time, and security has always been a passion of mine. I started and sold 3 other companies, and in each company we had a security practice. My last company, Vertex Systems, had specifically developed some products for security that were pretty cool. And over time, I always wanted to create something that addressed the needs of security, but really for masses. You know, after the internet and when everything opened up, security was not behind the firewall anymore. It was about how do you address cloud security and everything else that goes around it.
Absolutely. And so you've seen all of the major changes from us going from analog to digital, right?
Yeah.
And around the Y2K timeframe. I know there's, again, a couple of years in and out, just depending on adoption rate, right? You've seen mobile, you've seen cloud, right?
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the biggest one of all, right, in AI, right? And there's little ones in between. I'm jumping over some other ones.
Right.
So kind of hit on one or two of those and what your experience is, and then we'll jump into how you're seeing it with AI.
So let's start with, cloud first, because that's an easy one. People can relate to it now. But when we first started, the word cloud didn't exist. When I first started Zenex, it was VMware and virtual machines in a data center, and the word cloud did not exist. I remember when I talked about that and I said, we're going to have a, cybersecurity from the cloud. They said, what? What's cloud?
What?
Right? Yeah, cloud. What? Now everybody uses the word cloud. I think we are having a very similar experience with AI. I think AI, by the way, AI is not something new. AI existed 10 years ago when MIT wrote the initial algorithm for statistical analysis, which is the basis of a lot of these. It was a very good story to tell, but until ChatGPT came in and made it, used for
accessible to everybody,
that's when it really took off. Now it's changing the world. Without a doubt, it's changing the world. It's changing my business. It's changing everybody's business.
Right.
And I think over time, we will see this evolution of AI affordability, capability, better and better agents and algorithms that enhance the environment and make everybody more productive. Of course, with that comes what I believe is human supervision, because this could go too far. And that's another conversation for another time. But there has to be
complete agreement too, by the way, Kevin. I'm in complete agreement with you. Yep.
So I think we're going to see a big evolution that has already started. Some people even call it a revolution, because we've had multiple inflection points in IT industry. Internet was one, cloud was another, and now we are going into another one, which is called AI. And I think over the next, I would say 5 years, maybe even 10 years, we are going to see a pretty significant improvement on that technology and the ability of everybody in every industry to take advantage of it and be more productive.
I couldn't agree more. I absolutely couldn't agree more. and watching this is fascinating. One of the things that I talk to a lot of founders and CEOs about is, especially in the last 6 months, is their struggle with when and where to adopt AI. They all know they need it, but a ton of them, especially the ones that I would say are in that last 10-year window before retirement, right? And the closer they are, the more I get this question for some reason. Again, I get it, right? They're riding it out, but they're saying, hey, I was able to wait on the cloud, right? And my advice is you're not able to wait on AI, right? Because of that window and adoption rate shrinking compared to the cloud. What are you seeing and what do you think, Kevin?
I 100% agree. I think the acceleration of the technology adoption is really the key. Cloud was not a quote unquote urgent matter. People could still have data centers, and they still do. They still have their assets in some data center or on-prem, and they still works. So it wasn't urgent. The difference between cloud and AI is that AI is a major productivity or intelligence gathering that changes the dynamics of the business. And that's different than how cloud worked, because it was changing the infrastructure of how business worked. So it is a completely different dynamic, in my opinion. So I think what's going to happen is that, as I also would say, that there is difference in how people use the word AI today. I don't believe that the noise in the market is as accurate as the AI capabilities today. For example, a lot of companies claim that they have AI, but what do they have? What do they use the AI for? They probably have some kind of a web,
a chatbot or something, right?
Right. Yeah. Or they have a help desk AI help. But truly, that's not the productivity that I was referring to.
Right.
The productivity comes from changing the principle, the fundamentals, the foundation of the business that's typically done with human resources at a very expensive human cost and lengthy, and expedite that so that AI could do that heavy lifting.
Yes.
Of course, I have to add to that human element, in my opinion, will never go away. It's another tool that brings efficiency. I'll give you an example. In our case, for example, AI, we've already implemented for certain ingestion of security data that we collect for SOC as a service. We are a security operations center as a service. Over time, we will be able to collect data from any source anywhere. Now, that's a pretty complicated AI model, so it cannot be implemented overnight. So when somebody says that we've got AI for a business, you have to peel the onion to figure out what that means. And implementing it AI to change fundamentally the way the business works takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's easy to implement it for one vector of data, one vector of information, but it's not as easy when you look at the overall and you want to bring all of those elements into one AI analysis to have efficiency out of it.
I totally agree, Kevin. And it's funny you say that, because I've had a number of conversations over the last few months hitting exactly what you had just said, which is they feel like if they're using ChatGPT or they have a few AI bots, right, they're using AI, not understanding the true power and productivity gains that AI has. And one of the things that it's funny that I've experienced is, and it was, through a conversation like this, is that it's changing the way that private equity is even envisioning and the way leaders and CEOs are operating, because it used to be where when you needed to, when the market changed, right, and you had to do layoffs to save money and move the bottom line, right, the bottom 10 to 20% of your employees were at risk, right? And now they're saying, well, wait a minute, if I run that same organization and I can have AI do the mundane tasks of that junior set of things that we didn't really have the highest value on, right? It might fundamentally change that model. And that's, again, that stuff's not baked in yet. There's still, you can see the maturations of these cycles happening, but I can fundamentally see things changing, right? In how the whole approach to some of these things are, is where does AI fit in and how does it accelerate these models? Right? Like, are you kind of following what I'm saying and seeing that?
100%. The writing is, on wall. You could see that, for example, software development is going to change. because AI can generate most of the code already. So what happens to all those software
I heard
developers?
30% of all code right now is being done by
Right.
AI. That's crazy.
Right. And then, when you could do travel agencies that could automatically generate all kinds of itinerary at the best price possible, and it's done with AI, what does that do with the travel agents? When you can do architecture work that the AI actually draws beautiful drawings and it saves a significant amount of time, what does that do to that field? So I think AI in general is going to fundamentally change it. We've got ways to go, as we started talking about.
Yeah.
But it is going to happen. It's a maturation of this technology within those vertical industries that will get there somehow. And I think that's why businesses have to be aware of those changes and how AI is going to impact their industry. Otherwise, they will be behind.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So when it comes to your industry in particular, talk to me about how you see it influencing and affecting your industry and some of your competitors.
Great question. So let's take a look at our industry first. We're in the business of security operations center as a service. Mm-hmm. That means we connect to companies, collect data from their environment, from any source, anywhere, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, and any application, 100% agnostic. And when we ingest that data and we bring it in, then we do a cross-correlation across all this vectors of information to identify that incident. Well, today it's done with a number of tools, including cross-correlation engine and human eyes and all of that. What AI is going to do for us is the ability to analyze that data in our industry faster, but not necessarily,
hyper fast.
But not necessarily 100% accurate, because there will be false positives, and I wanted to qualify that. And that's why security analysts will never go away, because you need to have a balance between AI effect and human intelligence. Now, is AI going to be ever as effective and comprehensively as human intelligence? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. It depends how mature this model becomes over time. But I believe that human intelligence will be necessary in our industry to give the customers in our industry the value that they're expecting. In other words, if you let it, I'm speaking specifically about our industry because that was your question. In our industry, if you let AI do the work, and if it generates a lot of false positive, the customers get a lot of alerts. And that defeats the purpose, because the customers don't want to get 1,000 alarms because AI made a mistake. They want to know that one incident that they got to take care of to improve their environment and protect themselves, or we help them protect themselves. That's where the difference between full AI and what I call hybrid AI comes in our industry. The ability to look at AI as a tool and use it to accelerate the detection of incidents and be able to remediate that incident and take action faster, but not necessarily completely replace it. I think that is a wave that's coming to take some time to mature. We're down that path already, but over time it's going to get better and it's going to get more powerful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Kevin. And I love that you said that, because on our podcast, we have termed, and I always give Alexander DeRitter from Smith OS the credit for this, but he calls them digital coworkers. It's where the term co-pilot came from, right? It's how do I take my good employees, put AI in their hands and make them 2 to X better, right? Because they can get the mundane out of their job. The morale goes up. They don't have to do the stuff they hate at their job, and they can get the data coalesced faster so they can make smarter decisions. To your point about how to make sense of what they're seeing, and then how to do the right thing with.
Yeah, correct. I always refer to it, actionable intelligence.
I love that term.
It doesn't matter that you get a whole bunch of stuff, but if you don't have actionable intelligence, then you're not doing the things. Right. So it is. I love that term. What did you say? Digital
coworkers. Yeah. When Alexander told me that, I go, light bulb, makes perfect.
It's really a good term, I think. Yes.
But actionable intelligence, I might steal that. I'm going to steal that one from you. I've loved that. Yeah. See, now I get to give you a lot of credit on future ones.
You're welcome to use it all the time.
Yeah. So As you look down the next I don't even say 2 years, 1 to 1.5, 18 months is probably the longest anybody can look out because we don't know what it constantly iterates and innovates, right? And with MCP models coming out, and agentic AI taking root, this is where we get into real productivity gains from AI for the first time. And so what do you see the biggest impact, right? And even outside your industry, but Kevin, like, where do you see those?
I think the cost is going to come down. I think that's going to be a huge impact. In fact, just recently they announced that the DeepSeek is 95% plus lower cost now. So I think the curve is going to be pretty steep. Prices are going to come down, capabilities are going to go up, and therefore much better financial impact in order to do this, and therefore the adoption rate is going to be much faster and much better. I think the only challenge in this is having the right people to do the work, because there's still not that many qualified experts, data scientists, and OpenAI developers or in general developers to write those algorithms, to write those agents. The companies who are doing it are very, very busy right now because everybody wants them. Yep. So the problem is going to be a bottleneck of experts and resources to do this. But the technology capabilities will be there, and the price points and financial analysis will be wonderful. So over the next 18 months, I anticipate that we will have a rush to get everything. A lot of businesses are going to have a rush to get it done quickly, and there's going to be a challenge in getting those resources, as I mentioned. But this will also stabilize as more people shift from their traditional work that they're doing, such as software development, and focus on AI development. Yeah. Those developers who used to work on C# and C++ are going to say, you know what, I'm going to move, or React or whatever. They're going to move and say, I'm going to move to it. And therefore that starts balancing out, and more resources will be available, and therefore the adoption rate will go higher.
I totally agree. It's funny. So I had Anuj Gupta from Gradient Advisors on recently, and him and I are actually going to do a virtual workshop for everybody on the podcast. And the reason is, as you and I were talking before the podcast, the way in which leaders are thinking about AI is not all centered on the right thinking yet. And what I mean by that is, and you had highlighted it before, is just because you have an AI chatbot or you're using ChatGPT for certain guidance, right? You're not using the true power of AI yet in your business. And a lot of people are still back in machine learning, right? And they're using pattern recognition, but they're not yet hitting what that next thing is, that actionable intelligence and decision making, right, that comes out of that. And so one of the things that Anuj had highlighted to me, and you'll be getting copied on his AI CXO playbook, which is just, to me, centering us all on the right things and the right use cases to tackle. But one of the things that he hit on was the 4 pillars of AI, right? Which is, people are really focused on that first pillar right now, which is the model, right? Whether you're using Grok or ChatGPT and you're trying to figure out, how do I get the model to work in my business, right? Whereas not really the right thing to be focused on. But the other 3 were, hey, how do I put AI systems into my business, right? Which now we're getting into agentic, right? Then the 3rd pillar is, how do I get AI into my product or service, but really into a product as part of it, not as a feature, but as core component of it, right? And then the 4th one that blew me away is, and this is what gets scary, but it's probably the right thing we all need to focus on, is it's the red team, blue team. It's called the business of AI. If you looked at your business, right, totally from scratch today, and now that you have all this AI capability and what's coming in the next year to 18 months, would you build the same business, and would you build it the same way? Because that's what competition and private equity might be investing in now, right? So it's a different way of thinking, and it's almost like, that's the moat question. How do I put the moat around my business, right? Yeah. Do I need to reimagine my business? And I feel like, Kevin, that last pillar is what a lot of forward thinkers that are going to change the market are happening right now. So I'm struggling, and this is why I'm going to ask you the question is, where does that fit in, and when do we need to start thinking about that? Is that now? Is that in the next 6 months? How do you see that?
It's now.
Yeah.
It's not the next 6 months, because changing the business and using AI to change the business, if you were to start it all over again, it's not something that can happen overnight. So you got to be prepared. You got to get all of your facts on what can be changed to take advantage of AI. And that's not something that can be done quickly, particularly if you have a complex product. The amount of investigation that where that AI could have the most impact and most benefit, that takes time to figure out. Now, if it's a process, that's a little bit easier. But if it's a system, it's a little bit more complicated. And I think that analysis is going to take some time. So that, let's say that you spend 6 times figuring it out and then implement it, then that's another, let's say, a year to implement. You're looking 18 months out already.
Yeah. Right.
So we see that I see that, I look at every technology that comes out very carefully. And I see that the newer technology-based companies, they're fully taking advantage of AI already. In fact, their businesses, sometimes they don't even have a lot of employees, maybe
10, 15 employees sometimes I've seen.
15 employees, and the rest of it is done with AI, which is, that's the new model of running a technology company, which is not surprising because AI does the work. So I think that's going to be a trend. I think that will happen. And if the companies don't look at, if the C-suite does not look at, how do I change my business to adjust to the new realities of technology forced by AI strength, where am I going to be 2 years from? Am I going to be competitive in my industry? Or what do I have to do to be more competitive using AI? So 100% agree with that fourth pillar that you said. You got to sit back and look at it and say, this is where I am. This is where I need to be. I didn't start with AI, but I need to put AI in here. What components of my business are best fit to implement AI in there to become more AI enabled? That's the fourth pillar that you're referring to.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny, Kevin? I feel like that conversation is happening hardly at all, right? I think people think about it, but they're not having it. Certainly not at the board level, right? I've heard board members, right, from several of our clients that said, hey, we know we need to be thinking about AI, right? Thinking about AI, right? Whereas I'm thinking you need a plan yesterday, right? To figure out, like to your point, if it's going to take 6 months or 9 months, how do we put that plan in place yesterday, right? Because we got to get there or else we're going to be, struggling and losing, and we're going to lose market share overnight and go, where did this come from? Right?
Well, part of the problem is that it is difficult for traditional business to change the model to AI business. So when you look at the board, looking at it, it's like, oh, we've been doing this like this for years and it's been successful. So the transition is not easy. Right. Even the conversation is not easy. Where do you start that conversation? What do you do with the employees that have been trained over a period of time to do this work? What are you going to do with them? Are you going to lay everybody off and change the business in the next 6 months? It's a hard conversation. It's a difficult decision to make, and it's going to take some time to figure out. So I think people naturally have a tendency to say, well, let's just see what happens with AI, and then we'll figure it out later. Right. To avoid the conversation, well, I should be thinking about it yesterday. I should have a plan about it yesterday. Right?
Yes.
It's a human nature. But if you're in technology and not in a non-technology business, you're a lot more sensitive to this issue because you see it coming, just like cloud came, just like internet came. Internet changed the world. It opened up. Instead of being regional, it became a global economy. And right now, you travel. My daughter's traveling all over the world right now. It's as if she's home. We talk on, FaceTime all the time, right? There is no distance. Internet was the enabler.
It's flattened the world, isn't it?
Cloud, right. Yeah, flattened the world. Cloud, made things.
Cloud was the first step to getting us there too. Absolutely.
All of that.
And then COVID, we got thrown to the deep end of the pool. Everyone had to figure it out overnight.
Yes. It's just like, all right, you see all these transitions, inflection points. Now this one,
this is game changing.
Faster. It's going to be harder. It's going to be much more impactful.
And the difference here, Kevin, and especially you being a technologist, I've been in technology my whole life as well as a consultant. But this is the one thing, and I got this again from Anuj, who I've really gotten to know, who's been doing AI for 20 years, and he just has a great perspective. But one of his papers that got me to talking to him said, AI is not IT. And I think that's the fundamental difference. All the things you and I have talked about were IT driven initiatives, right?
Yeah.
AI
correct.
is not. AI is for everybody, right? When you eliminate coders, right, over the next few years, you don't eliminate them, but they are using AI to write, right? It changes everything. It's the creative part of your brain is now the most important. What can you dream up to have AI do, regardless of department you're in, right?
Yes,
And I
correct.
feel like it's going to flatten company structures and departments because the interlocking and the interoperability the silos go away, right?
Yeah,
Not the functions, but the silos of communication and interoperability. Are you seeing that? Are you like,
I talked to a legal firm just recently, and they're saying that we want to do all of our research that's heavy duty, and we get all these interns to come in and do all the heavy lifting for us. Now it can be do AI. They can go scour all the past history and just give us a summary of the case. And that it took weeks to do, and we just do it just like that. So
Case Law got bought by, he was one of the first, I forget the founder's name, but he was in Y Combinator and got sold to Thomson Reuters to FindLaw for doing that for law firms. Exactly that. Can I do all the research? And you know what he did, right? If you go, I'll have to send you the YouTube where they interviewed him. Y Combinator, the group interviewed him on their podcast. And basically he said, I just brought in as many high-end lawyers and just said, how would you, and they interviewed him and transcribed him, how would you research this case?
This case.
And they just taught AI how to do that, right?
How to do that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
but I feel like you could do that with HR, you could do that with operations, you could do that with customer success, all of it.
We're doing it with our security analysts. We take our top security analysts and we tell them, how would you look for a threat? How do you do threat hunting? And that becomes it's becoming
That's phenomenal.
AI model, right? The AI does the threat hunting for us, and then we validate it.
Yeah.
So the heavy lifting is done. Just like you said, the heavy lifting is done.
Yeah. Well, and do you guys do SOC 2 audits and all that?
We don't do SOC 2 audits. That's a different type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But SOC 2, any SOC 2 compliance is very, very heavy lifting, right? And I feel like that's the kind of stuff that AI can not only make easier but accelerate.
Pretty much, as I said, every industry can be accelerated. The work can be done faster if you can find those systems that can accommodate AI. And the heavy lifting is done by almost everything that we can talk about.
And the thing is, so the other question I wanted to have for you was, how do you as a leader impart that and change your culture of your team to be an AI first mentality? Because that's not an easy thing either, right?
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah. And a lot of people are actually afraid of losing their jobs.
Yeah.
And I actually communicate. We have in my staff meeting twice a week, I actually talk about the impact of AI and where we're going with it. And I explain who we are hiring, what we're doing so that they understand it's not a replacement of the resources. I make it very clear that nobody's going to get fired because we are bringing AI. And the AI is the digital worker that you mentioned, that the digital assistant you mentioned, that it makes their job more exciting. They can be creative with what they do. They can be more focused on customer rather than doing the heavy lifting. So there has to be a communication so that culture, the investment in the employees does not go out the door because they're afraid they're going to get fired, but rather embrace AI. Embrace AI as a way to improve what they do. Ultimately, customer satisfaction is the only thing that I measure. And I want to make sure we have better customer satisfaction with AI. They know how they can employees, they know how they can service our customers better because AI will give them better tool, better analysis to do their job. That's the cultural change. To know you could do better. You could be better using AI.
You can be way better, right?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. And you know what the best part right now is? No one's figured out all the best ways to use it. So every person that's using it is unlocking new things, right? And that's why I'm a glass half full person always with this, because I feel like you do, right? Is that AI is going to make their job better. They're going to be happier because they're not doing the mundane grunt work that bogged them down.
100%. You could see that already. I mean, when we first talked about software development and how AI could accelerate that, a lot of people were afraid. But now I've talked to software developers and says, you know what? all that code that I used to write was not helping me. I was spending too much time on just writing the basic stuff. Now I can
Exactly.
focus on how I could, improve my code that is faster, better, without bugs, deliver a better
Yeah.
product.
Imagine just automating the QA process, right, with AI, right? Like how much better the developer is going to be happier because it's going to catch all the bugs.
Exactly. Imagine that, right?
Right.
There's so much more we could do. All of this, by the way, open field.
Yes, open field. Exactly.
For the next 12 months, you could start imagining all the possibilities and do a startup.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Right, and that right there, changing how private equity is handled. It used to be private equity have to fund you to get to MVP. Now you can have MVP done in a couple of weeks and go to private equity to scale it. Right.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the model these days.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Things are changing. And I don't think it's why we started the podcast, is to alert everyone to what's happening that they're not seeing. Right. And it's why I love talking to guys like you, because you're seeing it on the ground and you're coaching your staff to embrace it and innovate with it. And that to me is a brilliant mindset and how you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kevin, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us today and sharing your insights. But we're going to put all the links below in the show notes, but tell everybody how to get in touch with Zenix and just, your team and on the security front.
Sure. You could reach us at sales@zenixsoc.com or go direct to our website at zenixsoc.com. That's XENEXSOC.com, and just ask for somebody to reach out to you, and we'll be more than glad to share whatever information that we have with you or answer any questions you may have.
Love it. Love it. We'll make sure that everyone and anyone that needs your services get in touch with you. Last question, though. Tell me something that you do personally to make yourself more productive with AI you think somebody would be interested in.
So actually, I do multiple of things with AI. I do a lot of product research with AI because at heart, I'm a technologist. I look at the technology and I say, okay, how could we improve our own product? And therefore, I do a bunch of research with AI across the industry to see who does what. The second thing that I do with AI is competitive analysis. So I look at who has what and how does it work? And therefore, can we improve our products to become better or services to become better? And finally, something that I do is that when I prepare with my team a document, we throw it at AI and say, hey, take a look at this, make recommendations on how we can improve it. And so there's 3 different ways that I can think of that I regularly use this for. It's interesting interesting how much information we can get from AI research, something that I remember, oh my God, the old days, we had to go search through the internet manually to figure out the information. Now it's instantaneous.
Oh yeah, I remember how many companies did the price shopping where they would send someone to get on a sales call to figure out were they even in the same ballpark as their competitors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like that's the old school tactics. Like now it's crazy what you can do with deep research.
Oh God, yeah. I can do the analysis on the competitive advantage and product roadmap that used to take us 3 months to do in matter of hours or less than hours. It's a big difference.
I love it. I love it. Those are 3 great use cases, and we'll be sending those out to folks to think about, because we can't get enough. Like you and I were talking about, like we're all figuring out some of the best use cases. And that's something else that we're going to be rolling out here soon, is basically a list of use cases to think about. But to be honest with you, everybody's different and it's never meant to be prescriptive. I actually think you need to look and do an impact analysis on some use cases and figure out which one actually moves the needle before you spend 1 ounce of effort on anything.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was saying. Where does AI make the most impact in your entire system, rather than taking a blanket coverage and say, oh, I'm going to use AI.
Yeah.
Figure out surgically where you could best apply AI. That's where you get most bang for the buck. And it's step by step, improve this, improve CRM, improve customer service, improve sales, improve product development, one step at a time. You can't boil the ocean, but you can certainly figure out the areas that you could improve the parts of the system fairly quickly with AI.
Yeah. And you can measure ROI. That's the best part with AI is you can measure the impact downstream, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's always been any initiative. The hardest part has always been to track the impact and the results, right? Because that's always what everybody wanted to do with the retros, right?
That's
after the fact, lessons learned, right? How like we did this initiative. Did we really accomplish what we set out to do, right? With AI, it makes that a lot of that easier.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, you could calculate the cost of AI and transactions upfront based on the historical data. And you could say, if I take this information and throw it at AI, which I now have 3 people or 10 people doing it for me, what does that cost me? So you will know upfront how much savings you have or the ROI on that investment. So it makes it a much easier decision. I 100% agree with you.
Absolutely. Kevin, I could talk to you for hours. This is fantastic.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. I appreciate it.
I might have to have you back pretty soon because, we're I love it. So thank you for spending time sharing your insights, just sharing your journey. And we'll be actually monitoring and rooting for you going forward. We're going to feed you as much information that hopefully that you can use as possible. And we're definitely going to have you back in the next few months.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate for me having it. And I'd love to share whatever I can at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't have enough smart people on here. And so thank you again.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
And that wraps up this episode of Future Proofed. We will see you on our next episode.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.